Welcome to StopFake, the place where we set the record straight on disinformation about Ukraine. I'm Romeo Kokriatski with StopFake's latest dissection of Russian alternate reality. This week's stories include 2 new Russian fakes about Ukrainians' EU visa-free travel, and we debunk some faulty thinking by Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova. So let's start digging and get at the truth. Poroshenko deprives Donbas residents from traveling to EU without visas, declared Russia's Vzгляд internet newspaper this week. The publication quotes Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko out of context to claim that residents of annexed Crimea and Russian separatist-occupied Donbas regions will not be issued biometric passports, which are necessary for visa-free travel to the Schengen zone of the European Union. This is not the first time that Ukrainian authorities have divided their citizens into haves and have-nots, Vzгляд declares. As of June 11th, Ukrainians holding biometric passports can travel to the EU for a period of 90 days without a visa. Ukrainians living in occupied territories who have not surrendered their Ukrainian citizenship have the right to obtain a biometric passport. They must present additional proof of identity because the passport issuing office is not able to access the necessary archives in the occupied territories. Ukrainian sites Vesti and Correspondent, along with Russia's Rosbalt.ru, Fondusk.ru, followed in Vzglyad's footsteps, repeating the fake mantra, no biometric passports for Ukrainians in occupied territories. Poroshenko said the following: if there are problems in issuing passports for those who are in occupied territory, we must examine our legislative base, but we cannot leave these people without passports. If we can't issue them biometric passports, then they should be issued regular passports. Document, the state agency issuing biometric passports in Ukraine, recommends that when applying for a new passport, as proof of identity, residents of the occupied territories present several supporting documents bearing their photographs, such as a military identification card, a driver's license, a pension card, work ID, or any other identification with a picture. The first day of visa-free travel for Ukrainians to the EU generated scores of fake stories in Russian media. RIA Novosti reported that after the onset of visa-free travel, Poland was reluctant to admit Ukrainians. Citing an unnamed representative of Ukraine's border service, RIA claimed that Polish border guards were intentionally working slowly so as to allow as few Ukrainians across the border as possible, resulting in long lines on the Ukrainian side. REN TV and Pravda.ru and other Russian media also disseminated RIA's fake story. Several hours before issuing this fake, RIA was featuring a completely different story, reporting that hundreds of Ukrainians had taken advantage of the introduction of visa-free travel in the first hours after it came into effect. According to Ukrainian Border Service representative Oleg Slovedian, on June 12th, the second day of visa-free travel, nearly 2,000 Ukrainians had entered the EU by 6 a.m. Nearly 78% of those entered the EU by car, 22% traveled by airplane. The largest number of Ukrainians entered the EU through Poland. Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova is known for her outrageous and provocative statements, some of which StopFake has debunked in the past. Zakharova's latest pronouncement is about Crimea, a Ukrainian peninsula that Russia annexed in 2014. In an interview with Komsomolskaya Pravda, Zakharova called the annexation the highest example of democracy. No one took Crimea. Crimea is an unprecedented story. It is the highest example of democracy, the highest there is, Zakharova said. The people of Crimea fought for their rights a long time, and in return only received contempt from the Kiev government, and in one moment, that one historic moment, they took the decision that they took, Zakharova declared. Twisting the facts and mythologizing the seizure of Ukraine's territory is a favorite topic in Russia's information war. The forced referendum that Russia used as justification for the annexation is not recognized by the international community, and the annexation is one of the main reasons for the West's sanctions against Russia. That which Zakharova considers an example of democracy, the international community considers a violation of Ukraine's territorial integrity and an illegal seizure of sovereign territory. What democracy existed in Crimea has been completely rolled back since the annexation. Amnesty International has reported on the worsening human rights situation since the annexation and the persecution and repression of those who speak out against the Russian takeover of Crimea. The OSCE deemed the Duma elections held in 2016 on occupied Crimea to be illegitimate. Freedom House called the elections a farce at the expense of human rights and democracy. The OSCE's Human Rights Information Center 2016 report points out the endless repression of journalists and the curbing of freedom of speech, opinion, and expression in Crimea. Now, that doesn't sound like democracy, does it? That's it for this week. Be vigilant, beware of fakes. If you spot any disinformation about Ukraine, send it to us for a truth autopsy. Remember to stay healthy, don't consume fake news, and your brain will thank you, and the psychological climate of society will not suffer a precipitous decline. I'm Romeo Kokriatski, and this is StopFake. Thanks for watching.